Psychic greeting. When wanderers become aware of their mission and seek to do light work on behalf of the planet, if they are well enough in tune with the light to begin with, they begin to be a channel for a good deal of light going into the earth planes, and they thusly attract the attention of the loyal opposition, as I often call those discarnate entities whose path is that of service to self. Such entities are drawn to the flow of light which the light worker is offering through its instrument, and wish to trap that light for themselves. If the light workers are proud of what they are doing, or if there is any distortion of truth anywhere in their offering of self as channel, the chance of attracting psychic attack grows. People standing close to the light in their work and consciousness may always expect occasional psychic greetings, for we are all human and prone to error. The hope of avoiding error and living a perfect life is footless. One can hone one's desire, one can surrender to one's guidance, but one cannot avoid confusion. So, when psychic attack or greeting occurs, we need not feel like we have somehow failed. Just deal with the greeting. The ordinary fellow is not likely to attract such greeting. As those of QO say, we suggest that there can be no psychic greeting component without your free will choice in an area which lies within your course of study, shall we say. There may be no obstacles placed in your path by those who are of the loyal opposition, as we have described it, but those entities may magnify those experiences which you utilize, though we must at this time suggest that this phenomenon is far more unusual than most entities would imagine, for most of the entities within your illusion find themselves moving between the choice of service to others and a service to self, and have not moved far enough in either direction to attract the attention of those who would choose to manipulate that movement. Our group at LL Research went through psychic greetings aplenty during the work with those of Ra, and ever since then we have been somewhat prone to them, as we do constantly work as a lighthouse, offering worship on a daily basis and framing our common life and all its details as sacred. Through the years, many people around the world have come to visit, and many more to depend upon LL's research being there. In the inner sense, we continue a fairly large spiritual community. So, of course, we continue to attract some attention from the loyal opposition. Jim wrote in The Law of One, Book 5, that one's choices can be used in either the positive or the negative sense, even when there is the seeming interference of negative entities in the manner of what many lightworkers call psychic attack, and what we came to call psychic greetings. We chose the term greeting to emphasize that there does not have to be a negative experience on the part of the one who is greeted, and that the experience that the one who is greeted actually has is in direct proportion to how that entity looks at the situation. We choose the term greeting to emphasize that there does not have to be a negative experience on the part of the one who is greeted, and that the experience that the one who is greeted actually has is in direct proportion to how that entity looks at the situation. If one wishes to see such a greeting as a difficult attack, then that becomes the experience. One can, however, also choose to see the Creator in all entities and events, and can praise and seek the light within any situation, and then that will become the experience. Here, Jim talks of our experiences during the contact with those of Ra. Most people would probably not have described the feeling of not quite being whole and in harmony which our group experienced during the fall of 1982 as true disharmony. Yet, as one moves further along the path of seeking light and begins to stand closer to it, as we were privileged to do in the raw contact, even the smallest of lapses of harmony, when left unresolved, can become targets of opportunity for those such as our friend of negative polarity to intensify. These psychic greetings can become great opportunities to heal those lapses of harmony and to move further and faster upon the evolutionary journey, because what such a negative entity is actually doing when it intensifies one's disharmonious choices is pointing out to you weak points which you might have missed in your own conscious seeking. But one must take quick and thorough action in order to unravel these distortions in one's beingness, or further confusion and difficulty may ensue. Again, due to, first, your original free will choice. Second, the intensification of that choice by the negative entity. And third, by lack of attention on your part. And finally, resolving the distortion and balancing it. Fortunately, most people do not have to deal with the magical abilities of a fifth density entity, but with the lesser abilities of the fourth density minions, who are usually quite effective on their own. When I began working on this handbook, I generated enough effort eventually to attract greetings. Two of them, one right after the other, manifested in my belly, and I realized that there were issues connected with personal control in the writing of the book to untangle. The pain was coming from the orange and yellow ray chakras, the belly, and the solar plexus. I examined the book for issues between myself and others, and myself and groups, and I found that I was being somewhat lax about obtaining formal permission in a timely manner from each source whose words I wanted to share in this book. That was the orange ray concern, the concern between me and individuals. But what was the group I was attempting to deal with? I realized I was thinking of myself as a group, as LL Research, as if I were wise and knew all things, or rather as if LL Research's archive of channeled material did. Oops! I faced my pride yet again and confirmed that I could, of myself, do nothing except play with words. I do love these channeled messages we have gathered in our group, but I needed fully to see that there was nothing brand new here for me to offer. Little or nothing that the reader or listener, failing to find it here, could not find it elsewhere. Taking in this home truth, I found that the difficulty gradually subsided. Meanwhile, as I steep myself in the brimming beauties of blessings of Jim's stonework and gardens, I see that always psychic reading turns into the opportunity to cooperate once more with destiny. I have genuinely found reason for praise and thanksgiving as I work with psychic readings. This is the key. Psychic reading may bring mental, emotional, or physical pain. It also comes with blessing in its hands. I do not mean to say that psychic reading is not sometimes alarming. It certainly is. There can be immense pain and staggering amounts of suffering in a greeting, and it can take many forms. I do not mean to say that it is nothing to fear. Sometimes the New Age thinking can deny psychic greeting altogether, saying that there is no negativity. Yavoni talks about this. I know that the subject of psychic attack, or as you call it, psychic greeting, is something that many, even enlightened people, shun away from. At least this is true in my country, Sweden. Fear has gotten its claws into this country, and since there is also a spiritual drought among the people, the so-called New Age movement is thriving. The problem with the New Age movement of this country, apart from a lot of false prophets, is that as it teaches about love and light, it wouldn't touch the dark side. In fact, I've met a lot of New Age people who seriously think that the dark and evil doesn't exist. It's only in your head, and if it's in your head, who are you? As you know, there are many levels to this, many different ways of looking at it. In one way, yes, you can say that evil doesn't exist, because if you raise yourself above the astral plane, you don't have to bother with fear and evil. But how many of us down here on Earth have actually gotten to that point? Now, not I at any rate. The view of the loyal opposition needs to be balanced to see that service to self entities are of a certain kind, and service to other entities make certain choices. And these choices have rhyme and reason. Service to self tries to control and manipulate. Service to others releases, surrenders, allows, and cooperates. When we see psychic greeting, then ask ourselves not to contract into fear, but instead to deal with the greeting, with the mind that analyzes, with the intuition that makes hidden connections, with the spirit that goes about this prayerfully and with an eye to holy things. All these seeming attackers are portions of ourselves. In a profound and helpful sense, we may model psychic greeting as an attack on the self by a portion of the self. That portion is part of our dark side or shadow, and it needs to be loved, accepted, and reintegrated into the daylight self to create the universal and whole self. Here are some wanderers who share their experiences. I have had negative entities attack me. I have had negative entities attack me. I'm cut off from the Creator. I don't know what to do. I'm going to keep trying to convince myself that it's okay and safe to love the world, but it's just not going to happen overnight. It's going to take time. But in the meantime, there really is no safe place. I was sitting there as usual, taking notes, listening to the drone of the professor, when suddenly, out of the blue, or black, this huge cylinder came down over me. When this thing came over me, the noise and talk of the professor became muffled, like something had placed a vacuum over me. Well, I looked around to see if anyone else could see this tube or vacuum cylinder over me, and no one else was doing anything different. I felt then the same way you do when you are going to pass out. Almost. I guess the air might have been changed around me too. Then I started the prayer and sending out of the light and energy. This did the trick. It broke the cylinder or whatever it was, and things returned to normal. The negative forces or dark mass consciousness around our earth does exist, and will do whatever it or they can to stop light work if it or they can. So, psychic greetings can take place within dreams as well as during conscious awareness. The typical time for such nightmarish dreams is the deep of night, at 3 or 4 in the morning. Initiation can bring about the same situation of awakening in the night feeling attacked and hag-ridden. Most of the time, such nocturnal experiences are signs of initiation, not psychic greeting. When this occurs in our experience, we can deal with it the same way, whether it is psychic greeting or part of an initiatory experience. Prayers and affirmations of thankfulness and praise for all blessings received calm and center the mind. For more detailed information on how to deal with psychic greetings, I recommend Dion Fortune's book, Psychic Self-Defense. Here is a psychic greeting dream that Mary reports about. The most frightening dream I ever had, and the most difficult to think and write about even now, concerns the most powerful battle I have ever had and never want to have again. In the dream, I was riding my bicycle, having been to a house on the northwest side of town, and was headed home. I was aware of a couple of men on bicycles who seemed to be following me. One was of average intelligence, and the other seemed to have something wrong with him mentally. I stopped at a store, and when I came out, my bicycle was gone. I began to walk and came to a combination laundromat and eating place. I went inside and got something to eat. When I came out, the bicycle was there, so I got on and started for home again. The men had disappeared. Suddenly, I could feel myself changing. Then a rather mean voice began saying something about going somewhere else. It dawned on me that this voice was inside me. I asked who this voice was, rather low, because I didn't want other people standing close by to hear me, seemingly talking to myself. The voice kept jabbering about going somewhere else. I knew I had to get rid of it and told it to get out of me. It refused. And as I was arguing with it, I found myself at the 3rd Street and 8th Avenue stoplight. The bicycle had disappeared again, and I was now yelling at the voice to get out of me. Finally, it began to get weaker and started to leave. The light turned green. The car stopped, and as I began to cross the street, I found myself in a heap on the pavement. A woman came running to help me. The voice was mercifully gone. I feel I was given a spiritual choice to make in this dream. Had I made a different choice, I probably wouldn't be here writing this now. Notice the depth of emotions as Mary attempted to convey the horror of. Often these experiences are very subjective. They don't necessarily sound scary as one talks about them rationally. It is the depth of terror and other dark emotions that mark such dreams. In any event, the key to dealing with psychic greeting is focusing upon the unity of the self with all that there is, including the entity who is attempting to attack, and moving into love and compassion. Those of QO say, when one is attacked, it is natural to defend. And yet, in the sense of psychic greeting, the defense creates the prolongation of attack. This advice, I believe, is meant in the same wise as Jesus' admonition to resist not evil. QO says it is important for the entity upon the path of service to others to attempt to see the Creator within all beings at all times, to give praise and thanksgiving for the light of the Creator that exists in all, to seek and know that Creator in each, to offer within the meditative state the heartfelt love for all who send greetings or attacks, and to surround the self then in that love and light of the infinite Creator. Now here's a word about initiation. Like many terms related to the inner life and spiritual seeking, initiation is a fuzzy word. I am willing to leave the fuzz on it, rather than attempting to define more accurately those times of testing and trial that we receive as gifts from the Spirit. Initiation occurs at a point when much has been learned. The catalyst has been taken, and the responses have been those which attempt to polarize, to make some progress as a seeker of truth who knows themselves. The learning wants to spiral ahead, and we feel ready. At that crux, there will often be a time of real inner challenge, complete with scary nightmares, odd visions, interrupted sleep, and general spiritual discomfort. I believe these are times when the spiritual part of self needs to be sure the previous learning has been well seated. Consequently, the way to proceed is to deal with the experiences straightforwardly and continue to live the life we believe in. Quietness of nature and a faith-filled heart will serve. Well, thank you for joining me once again. It has been my honor and privilege speaking with you. I am Robert, your humble messenger of the Law of One. Be in peace, my brothers and sisters. Adonai, I love you. I'll talk to you again soon.